One of the most subversive critiques of capitalism, colonialism, and Western supremacy ever put into mainstream culture came from Disney. Yeah, let's talk about that. This is The Quiet Republic.
If the savage one is me, how can there be so much that you don't know? You don't
So, before we get into the song, we need to talk a little bit about Disney. And not in detail, but just enough to get some context here. Because Disney isn't some small experimental studio, and it never really was. Even at its very earliest stages, it was always building towards something much larger. A machine designed to tell stories, clean stories, marketable stories, and stories that could travel. And over time, that machine became one of the most powerful cultural forces on the planet. A corporation built on intellectual property, global reach, and mass appeal. Which means, like, by design, it avoids anything too confrontational, too divisive, or too dangerous. And I say that within like the context of the time. Walt Disney himself was anti-Semitic, a possible Nazi sympathizer, though that is contested. But there were straight up racist depictions, especially of people of color, and early on in Disney. But all of this was pretty standard fare for 1930s America. The point is, though, Disney never really challenged the system. It worked within it. It operated within it. Disney is, by its very nature, a corporation first. So, from the 1941 union that it tried its very hardest to bust and failed, which was brought on by disparaging pay between artists. Ah, yes, capitalism in motion here, people. So, that context right there is what makes this song so interesting. So, the year is 1995, and Disney releases Pocahontas, a film based on real people, but that it takes some serious liberties with history. It softens the violence, reframes the colonialism. It even turns it into a love story, which, if you actually know the history, becomes uncomfortable very fast. Pocahontas was a child when she met John Smith in real life. This isn't a historically faithful film, people. It's polished and simplified and very Disney. But through all that, and despite all that, I think something real actually slipped through. Something honest and something the film itself doesn't even fully understand, and it shows up in one song. And funnily enough, it's a direct rebuke against Disney and capitalism and the entire framework through which we view the modern world. You think you own whatever land you land on, and the earth is just a dead thing that you can claim. That's not just a statement, that's a condemnation. You think. The moment she says that, she's telling us something fundamental. The worldview behind it is wrong. You own whatever land you land on. That's colonialism. That's private property. That's the foundation of our entire modern world. And within that framework, the earth is sort of reduced to a resource, right? It becomes something inert, something to be divided, bought, claimed. But then she answers that worldview immediately by saying, but I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. And just like that, you have two completely different ways of seeing reality. One sees objects, the other sees relationships. One sees ownership, the other sees belonging. And that, my friends, is animism, the belief that the world is actually alive. Not metaphorically, but literally. That everything, the land, the animals, even the rivers, carry something like spirit or agency within them. And for most of human history, that wasn't some fringe belief. That was the default. The world was not something to conquer, it was something you lived within. And her very next words are important because they're essentially human history condensed down into a single line. You think the only people who are the people who look and think like you. Man, I don't know if truer words have ever been spoken across every land and culture and religion and ideology and time. We've all done that. We've made our fellow man another, not another, but an other. Because if we can other people, they're easier to dispose of, easier to write off. Every group in history has done this in one way or another, and the solution to our history, human history, is the very next line. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger. You'll learn things you never knew you never knew. And I love that built within this line is a double negative. It's not just ignorance, it's blindness to your own ignorance. You don't even know what questions to ask. You don't even realize that there's something missing. And the only way through that is experience, presence. Walking beside someone long enough to realize that their world is just as real as yours. That's empathy, not agreement, not sameness, just the recognition that the person across from you is not another at all. And then the chorus just takes it even further. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon, or asked the grinning bobcat why he grins? It sounds poetic, almost whimsical, but it's really asking something much deeper. It asks, how much of the world are you actually experiencing? Not measuring, not using, but truly experiencing. Because most of us move through life surrounded by things that we don't actually stop and see. The wind becomes background, the mountains become scenery, and animals become objects. And this song is pushing back on that. It's asking, what if the world is far more alive and less knowable and less understandable than we assume it is? What if we're not the center of it, but just one small part of something much larger? So by the time the second verse begins, the tone just completely shifts, right? This is no longer a critique, it is now an invitation. Come run the hidden pine trails of the forest. Come taste the sunsweet berries of the earth. Come roll in all the riches all around you. And for once, never wonder what they're worth. And that last line is everything. Never wonder what they're worth. Because that's how we're trained to see the world. What is this worth? What can I get from it? How can it be used? And here the song asks you to drop all that just for a moment, not to extract, not to take, not to turn it into something else, but to experience it and fully, to run through it and taste it and exist inside of it without trying to own it. Because the riches it's talking about aren't material, they're experiential. And the moment you start asking what they're worth, you already missed the point. The rest of this verse just keeps pulling you deeper into this worldview. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The heron and the otter are my friends. And to us, that sounds strange, almost childish, because we don't see the world like that anymore. We don't see ourselves related to it. We see ourselves as separate from it, above it. But what the song is doing right here is redefining relationships, not through ownership, not through use, but through shared existence. The same wind moves through all of it, the same world holds all of it. And we're not standing outside of nature, we are inside nature. We are all connected to each other in a circle and a hoop that never ends. And that idea changes everything. Because if the world is something you've connected to, then domination starts to look like destruction. How high does the sycamore grow? If you cut it down, you'll never know. That's not just about a tree. That's about what happens when the need to control overrides our ability to experience. When understanding becomes dissection. And the moment you destroy something to fully grasp it, you've already lost what made it worth knowing in the first place. So sometimes the most honest thing that we can do is just let something be and meet it where it's at. And then in the second chorus, the message widens, right? Whether we are white or copper skinned. It doesn't matter where you come from. This way of seeing the world, this way of living is open to anyone. And then the song ends with the final line, you can own the earth and still all you own is earth until you can paint with all the colors of the wind. And that is the whole argument, because the moment that we reduce the world to something that we can own, we've already started making it smaller, less alive, less meaningful. And there's a kind of emptiness in that. One we've built entire systems around and still haven't escaped, because the truth is we don't own any of it. Not really, because every civilization that ever thought they did is gone. And one day, so too will we. We will return to the earth that we tried to divide and claim and control. And not as owners, but as a part of it. And maybe that's the point of the song. Not that we should reject the world, but that freedom is found in the recognition that we were never actually separate from it. This is the Quiet Republic.
You can